Good afternoon, wherever you are and wherever you may be. Today is a video about Rik Mayall, but before I get started, I do apologise about the kerfuffle around me at this moment in time, as I'm in the middle of doing something which I'll cover in another video. I'm currently building one of these bad boys, and it's the first time I've ever built one. I've got 3 altogether, but depending on how this one goes going forward, see how the rest of it goes. I've even got as far as spray painting some of the elements of it already with the main colour it's going to be, as that's one of the elements of the design. And I've got several different things that I'm going through. I've got a rotor that I've got to work through because we've got a 62-week rotor, which I'm starting to go through to plan my year out. Left it a little bit late, and I should have done that last year or the year before, but it's only now with my week off that I have the time to do so. Anyway, moving swiftly on, this video is about Rik Mayall. Unfortunately, like Sean Locke, Rik Mayall is no longer among us, and he passed away too young of heart complications. Anyway, let's not lament and just remember Rik Mayall. He started his life with a gentleman called Adrian Edmondson on a show as the sort of alter ego with the Dangerous Brothers, which doesn't exist in the archive. I think people may have recorded it, hence the reason there's still material for it. A lot of it, quite a bit of this is covered in I believe a DVD which I watched, which kind of went through their lives and almost autobiographical. I think it was like 30 Years of Laughter or something along those lines, if I remember rightly. Shortly thereafter, he appeared on a show called The Young Ones. Now, The Young Ones was based in a flat in London. They were students, so it's all very different personalities. Adrian Edmondson was a punk. You had a guy that was a hippie, which I believe was Nigel Planner, and then you had a guy that was a bit like a yuppie, but he's cool for some reason, and his name was Mike, and he always seemed to know the answers to things, but he just was cool, but he wasn't really, if that makes any sense. And then you had Rik Mayall, who was politically motivated, very proactive, but not really much basis what he was going on about. It's very, very anti-Tory, if I remember rightly, and it covered their misadventures in this aforementioned flat. They had it was unusual for the time because they had music acts halfway through to go from Act 1 to Act 2, and they had the likes of Motorhead and Lemmy singing the Ace of Spades and What a Belter, and there were many different music groups that they had play between Acts 1 and 2. Now, this ended, and eventually further on in the 80s, mid to late 80s, was a show called Filthy Rich and Cat Flap. I've tried watching it, I couldn't really get on with it, but I'll give it another try at some point, because I believe there's only 5 episodes of it. And now we go to the crux of the matter, in which he made me laugh, and I wish I could have seen him live. And that show's called Bottom. Now, Bottom was in the early 90s, quite a lot of it, I believe, written by Ed Bye, or was it the music composed by Ed Bye? But anyway, filmed in front of a live audience, which I would love to have done so, but at the time I was an adolescent, so I wouldn't have been allowed to have gone to see the script, to see them. And it comprised of them two living in a flat together in Hammersmith, and the scenes from the intro are of a Hammersmith that's very different to the Hammersmith of today. The Hammersmith of today is a metropolis in many ways, and there's very little trace of Hammersmith left, of the version of Hammersmith they talked about in Bottom. As it's been gentrified, and they've got the Eventim Apollo, which used to be called the Hammersmith Apollo, there, which is very close to the flyover. The flyover is probably one of the eternal things that has been there for the M25 orbital, which has been there for a long, long time. It goes through their misadventures of trying to exist. Some of it's quite disgusting, I'm not going to lie, and some of it is quite hilarious. They wouldn't be allowed to make the show today. You had laughs and you had violence, and you always had the fact that it was violent between them, but any violence that happened to them, they always lost, because they decided to tussle with people that were quite aggressive and violent. For example, them minding the shop for their landlord and then getting stuck on the top because they wanted to watch a cricket match, and then they get locked on top and the shop below gets looted. And things of that nature. Their camping trip on a roundabout somewhere, which leads to a streaker terrorising them. You have to watch them to not necessarily believe them, but they've definitely got variety. Unfortunately, in the end of the television series, they got taken out by the SAS because of something involving the Queen, which is quite a common occurrence with Richie giving many speeches about how he knows rich people and people like talks about the royal family, etc., etc. This led later on to Bottom Live, and unfortunately I only found out about the last one because there's 5 of them in total, and the last one is called Y-Fronts of Mass Destruction, and unfortunately only found out about it after it finished, which is a damn shame, because I think it would have been hilarious to watch. He did have a breakdown period for a little while between these, but through his friends and family they got him through the other end. He's been on adverts for Nintendo Game Boys, and the adverts are always quite humorous. You can find them on this platform. He has also been on a famous reading of Jack and Ori of Roald Dahl's George and His Marvellous Medicine. And unfortunately, like Sean Locke, he went too soon. He also appeared on Jonathan Creek, and I believe Jonathan Creek is the last bit of work that he did before his untimely passing. Rik Mayall was, in interviews, always quite a reserved man. I mean, mainly the one I can remember is Wogan, which used to be a talk show with Terry Wogan in the late 80s, early 90s. doesn't exist today for obvious reasons, and there's probably not much of it surviving in the archive, because if it was videoed it probably got taped over. Sadly, he does have, for me, a legacy, and for many others of you out there who've heard of him and watched his work, you'll appreciate it too. He was always come across in interviews as shy, or asked questions but couldn't have enough time to answer them in a manner he'd be satisfied with, because when he was in the young ones he was seen as counterculture, even though at the time that was just a thing, you know. Not me. And from there on in, if he was around today, he'd be in many different things. The other film I forgot to mention that he was in was called Drop Dead Fred, and Drop Dead Fred was actually very good. It's about a woman who, when she was a little girl, had an imaginary friend who happened to be Fred, and then through having some issues with a failed marriage, etc., etc., Fred comes back, and the film's called Drop Dead Fred. So definitely give that a try. It's a bit dated because obviously when it was made, but check it out. Bottom is probably definitely the best piece of work. Drop Dead Fred maybe on streaming services. Unfortunately, I think Bottom might be behind a paywall, because there's a streaming service, I can't remember what it's called at this moment in time, but a streaming service that has ITV shows and BBC shows, but mostly comedy shows, and it's all behind a paywall. So that's something to think about. It may come on iPlayer if they ever do re-show it. Some of it they probably couldn't show today because of the subject matters. Like the young ones, I think they repeated, but again, at Bottom they repeated, but it's never. I don't think it's been in this sense. Well, in the 2020s at least, anyway. You might be able to get these on Netflix, because for a period of time they're on Netflix, so if you're in another country you may be able to watch them that way. I'll definitely check out Rik Mayall. He was zany. I think it was probably one of those characters you either liked or didn't like, but it was hugely popular. Seemed to be quite a nice guy, and if you ever get a chance, check it out. Also, thank you to my 2 new subscribers, very much appreciated. Getting closer to my next milestone, which I very much appreciate, making videos for your good selves, and would like to make another video or 2 before I go back to work on Sunday. So hopefully there'll be another 2, and possibly if I can convince him, a collab. And we'll probably talk about the 90s and things that we experienced and things that happened. So more like a sort of video log, but it'd be nice to bounce off. He's one of my best mates that I've known for at least 30 years, and we've shared many experiences throughout our lives. Don't get to see him as much as I used to, but when we do generally have a good time. Anyway, wherever you are, whenever you are, be the best person you possibly can be, and until the next one, I will see you in the next one. This is 4046 out.